My name is Janine Turner, and I am the founder of Constituting America. Welcome to our annual Scholastic Academic Study. This year's study is entitled The Genius of America, A Journey into Our Republic, a study on Alexis De Tocqueville's Democracy in America. The readings for today's essay is Government by Democracy in America, Volume 1, Part 2, Chapter 5, Sub-Chapters 12 through 14, pages 210 through 216. De Tocqueville on the civic virtues needed by America's self-governing citizens by Paul Carrese. These sub-chapters on America's, quote, government by democracy, end quote, address a crucial theme of the work, constitutional republic versus democracy. De Tocqueville befriends the new phenomenon of mass egalitarian democracy, especially its success in America so far. Yet, as a genuine friend, he notes both weaknesses and strengths. His tough love message, beware too much of a good thing, too much democracy and its ideal of equality undermines America's other great principles. These include liberty and self-government, the rule of law, moral principles mostly stemming from Christianity yet sustained by religious liberty, and striving for happiness, per the Declaration, in ways that ennoble life, not cheapen it. The tough love messages in these sub-chapters address public morality, particularly corrupt officials. Can our democratic spirit sustain hard struggles? An example, extended wars. Can the people heed the wiser policy judgments of, quote, statesmen, end quote? And can we exercise the self-control and far-sighted thinking necessary to survive and prosper in a dangerous world? A crucial passage in the, quote, efforts, end quote, subchapter reiterates de Tocqueville's praise of the United States as a federal republic with a complex constitution. See examples Volume 1, Part 1, Chapter 8, praising the Constitution's offices for statesmen in the presidency and Senate and elevated federal judges balancing the Democratic House. The Constitution keeps America a democratic republic, making the best of our democratic egalitarian spirit. Quote, efforts, end quote, also notes that, quote, a great democratic republic has never been seen, end quote, page 212. America is the first powerful, successful such republic in human history. However, here and in the sequel on the, quote, power of self-control, American democracy shows, de Tocqueville wonders whether our democracy, the dominance in American politics of popular will, allows the necessary self-control and far-sighted thinking. In efforts, he concludes that democracy, quote, will in the long term augment the real strength of society, end quote. But aristocracies, monarchies, and despotisms still can gather more focused power in the 19th century. Nonetheless, there is a path America could take offering hope. Quote, if a democratic country remained subject to a republican government for a century, it would be wealthier, more populous, and more prosperous than neighboring despotic authoritarian states. But it would have run the risk several times of being conquered by them, end quote, page 214. Thus, another theme here. Can Americans sustain the civic virtues, including, quote, public morality, end quote, to abide by our republican constitutional forms of government, thereby sustaining a more honorable politics and finding policies to promote greatness and security? Today, we don't think of politics in terms of virtues, vices, or the character of the people and of our leaders. Thus, we don't use, quote, statesmen regularly. Yet, Looking across the 190 years since de Tocqueville published these subchapters, don't they capture enduring issues of American self-government, along with predicting our survival, indeed power and greatness, in a still dangerous world? Further ideas to consider. Corruption and vices of those who govern in democracy, effects on public morality. Difficulty maintaining, quote, public morality, end quote, in democracy. Strong temptations to, quote, vulgar wealth seeking by officials and to popular suspicions against officials versus the dignity, honorableness, and public conscience a democratic republic should seek. Of what efforts democracy is capable. 1. Phony authoritarian democracy versus genuine. 2. De Tocqueville considers only the Revolutionary War an existential crisis for America. He never mentions the War of 1812, yet a few chapters ahead he discusses the prospect of a civil war over slavery. Can Americans sustain the taxes and the military service, either voluntary or conscripted, needed in a war of survival? What wars has America fought to substantial victories since 1830? What wars in the past 60 years have we abandoned? How is America's military faring after 50 years of the all-voluntary military policy? Democracies prefer peace, can make, quote, a sudden and vigorous effort, end quote, in a crisis, but may not be capable of, quote, braving great storms for a long time, end quote, page 214. 3. Democracies lack, quote, clear perception of the future, end quote, of the long-term value gained via difficulties because, quote, the people feel much more than they reason, end quote. Lacking the enlightenment and experience, end quote, that authoritarian governments have regarding war, international challenges, page 214. The power American democracy generally exercises over itself. 1. The wisdom of, quote, statesmen versus, quote, the difficulty that democracy finds in defeating the passions and silencing the needs of the moment in view of the future, end quote, that, quote, the people are surrounded by flatterers, end quote, and we often fall for the easy path offered. 2. De Tocqueville's harsh criticism of Indians, the typical term of the 19th century, and the Spanish and indigenous peoples of South America reflects a time when democratic republics were new and fragile. He emphasizes the basic reality that no people and politics is successful unless prosperous, ordered, and powerful enough to defend itself. Later in this part, he severely criticizes America for betraying the principles of the Declaration in its treatment of African slaves and indigenous peoples, but also predicts America will someday be one of the world's two dominant states, standing for liberty, while Russia stands for authoritarianism. He praises America, even if flawed, for being ordered enough to achieve greatness by securing the power to defy authoritarianism. Yet this realistic lens also produces his harsh judgments about other peoples. This essay was written by Paul Carrese. Paul Carrese is a professor in the School of Civic and Economic Thought and Leadership at Arizona State University and its founding director 2016 to 2023. Formerly, he was a professor at the United States Air Force Academy and co-founded its honors program, blending liberal arts education and leadership education. He teaches and publishes on the American founding, American constitutional and political thought, civic education, and American grand strategy. He has held fellowships at Oxford University as a Rhodes Scholar, Harvard University, the University of Delhi Fulbright Fellow, and James Madison Program, Princeton University, and currently is a senior fellow at the Jack Miller Center for Teaching America's Founding Principles and History.